afternoon, you beautiful people. Welcome to the Architectural Intelligence channel. I have had a strange past 2 years since the last rant that I posted on this channel. If you see my channel and you look at the videos that I have posted before, you will see one video where I posted a warning to architects regarding technology. See, since that time, around I believe the beginning of 2019, the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, I was working as a junior architect in New York City, where I always worked. Well, not in New York City specifically, but I worked in the New York metropolitan area. And I started to notice, as a younger person, I suppose, how slow the architecture industry tends to be, and how bureaucratic it is, not only in terms of the paperwork that you have to do to get a project done, but just within an office itself. Everything's very hierarchical and bureaucratic, and I probably worked in, let me see, 4 different offices, and I have also worked with subcontractors and contractors. I have worked with nonprofits in the architecture industry, and I couldn't help but notice the same pattern everywhere. The technologies we use are extremely old, and the workflows that we have are still imitating workflows that we had a long time ago. I mean, CAD is just it's a digital version of drawing with a pencil. And that is still the most popular way of designing buildings. So as I noticed that, I began to look into new ways of doing things and how and tools that people are making. And what I found is that there's a big push from people within the industry and outside of the industry to find new tools, create new tools and new workflows for architects and contractors and the construction industry as a whole. So that is when I made that video, that I pretty much said, architects, be warned, you can either join the new wave of, or not the new wave, but the new paradigm of how buildings will be designed, or you can sink. And I said that because the architecture industry is already a very tough industry. Architects have to work very hard to make a good amount of money. And a lot of of times, even when they are getting paid well, there are many clients that don't pay. The conditions for junior staff are not the greatest. The pay is really low. The amount of education is gigantic. The hours are long. So, for that same reason, it's why I said that you can join this new paradigm, or you will probably struggle. Because architects are already struggling, and if these new tools start to appear and they start to take away from architects that are already struggling, you're going to struggle even more. And that's sad. I love the architecture industry. I love architecture itself. And this is a tough topic for me because I worked in the architecture industry since, I don't know, 2015 all the way up to, not even. I've been in the architecture industry since 2014, and I finally left this year in 2022. So now that I'm thinking about it, that is almost 8 years of being within the industry as a student and as a professional designer. Now, the reason why I made that video is, as I said, because I was getting interested about all these tools that people are making, and there's so much going on. Ever since that year where I made that video, I have gone down huge rabbit holes of researching what is going on in the frontier of the architectural industry, or the, let's say, architectural software industry, to the point that I ended up learning how to be a software developer, and that is my job now. I wanted so bad to learn and to be on the frontier to change architecture that I ended up learning how to make software, and now I work making software. Mostly because of the reasons that I mentioned before: the bad pay, the long hours, and the dark future that I see for the architecture industry, which it doesn't have to be dark. There's a chance it might be dark, but it can also be really good. And this is why. Now that I am deep within the overlap of software and the architecture industry, I am starting to see that there are many tools that people are making that are extremely cool and smart. You have a whole wave of tools that are being developed that in their core technology have something that's called a GAN, which is a generative adversarial network, which in short, not to get too deep into it, is basically two algorithms that learn from a set of images or data, and they generate new data based on the data set that it was taught. And some of the most shocking examples have been made by NVIDIA in around 2016 or 2017, when they created their style GAN that basically is able to generate faces of people people that have never existed before. And that same technology has been, it's becoming better. And you have examples of a company called OpenAI, which I believe is a non-profit, but I'm not sure. And their software is even more promising. The types of images that people are able to generate are incredible. And the way that you interact with this AI is by creating prompts. So basically you describe in a sentence what you want this image to look like, and the AI takes a guess, a statistical guess, as to what your prompt means, and it generates an image based on its guess. So just that application alone is going to change graphic design and art as a whole. I'm not sure to what extent, but the technology is so promising that I don't see how it couldn't. And in the future, artists, instead of painting or designing, are going to be creating prompts. There's a whole branch now of research being done by these AI companies called prompt engineering, which is similar to coding, to programming, in the sense that you use language to tell the computer what to do. So the way that we think about these artistic endeavors like architecture and graphic design is going to be completely different in 15 years. We might end up, instead of having to draw a whole building, we might all become prompt engineers, describing buildings to the AI and just making basic edits after we're more or less satisfied with what the AI has generated for us. And the craziest part is that this technology is not a logical step from where we are right now. Unless somebody comes up with a intuitive way for people to work, for architects to work with this, the way architecture and other design disciplines are going to look like in 15 years is going to be completely different, like I said. So the people that are able to adapt to these new ways of designing, where you're interacting with a computer in a complete new way, almost as if it's your assistant. It's going to be so different that if you're able to adapt early, you will gain a huge advantage. Because these tools can multiply the value that you can provide to your clients. But the issue is that it's not a logical step. It's not, we're going from drawing to writing. And that's it. That is a completely different design language that architects are not mostly trained on. We're trained on drawing. Drawing is our way of interacting with the world. So that is one of the tools, for example, that, as I have explained. And I could probably put some examples in the description to videos of this type of technology. And I know this is a kind of a rant. I am not a professional YouTuber. I don't really have time to sit down and edit something that's more cohesive, but I don't see many people talking about this stuff. Now that I'm on the edge I am looking at the edge of the new technologies that are being created for architecture, I only see people being extremely excited about it. And so am I. As a designer, I love what's going on. But there's so many people that are still on AutoCAD and changing the way that they design, going from AutoCAD to something like prompt engineering might be almost impossible. Now, another type of technology that is also being used is other types of algorithms that also generate things for you. For example, like TestFit or SpaceMaker, that are able to generate early images or models or massings of your building with some data and stuff. You see, that is more of a transitional technology, as it is still very grounded into what we do today and the type of user interfaces we have today. But there is this giant gap between those type of tools and the tools that are smarter, that will probably shock the whole industry, like the one that OpenAI has made. I am still excited though, and I hope that the things that we do from now on take us farther as architects and allow us to adapt to better the industry and do away with the bad treatment of junior staff, the low wages. But that is yet to be seen. Anyway, since I don't see many people speaking about these things online, I think I will become a little bit more serious about it, and I am planning on making more videos about these things because I want to communicate with people. I want to become a better communicator myself, and there needs to be debate regarding these tools. We cannot allow only people that are from outside of the industry to dictate what the architecture industry is going to look like. We architects need to take the lead in that sense and collaborate with these companies so that the future of our design tools is made for us, by us, or at least advised by us. Anyway, that's been a rant. I will see you around.